Hi, my name is Sriyal Nilanka. I am a program officer with the Family Planning Association. I am 31 years old and I identify myself as being pansexual, and I'm also someone who's living with HIV. Let's say it this way. I mean, I never thought of myself as different. Other people made me realize that I'm different. Socially, I was made aware that I am different to other people when I was sort of starting off in my teens, because I was fairly effeminate and made fun of and bullied and sort of subjected to certain level of violence, because that was not understood by a lot of people at that time. 16 is when I sort of consider myself to sort of fully realize that, okay, there is this part of me that I'm exploring, and telling my family was much recently. Finally, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, I sat my parents down, more or less like, this is a part of me that we will have to sort of develop over the time so that we can have a better relationship. Because I think what was happening was I was distancing myself because they didn't understand my life. It came to a point where no one really spoke about my work, no one really spoke about my personal life. I was just a vessel in family events. But after I sort of made that initial step, my family also sort of gradually started to realize that if we need him to be fully involved with the family, they need to come to terms with it as well. So, been extremely lucky and privileged to have the kind of family that I do, but it's still a journey to sort of for them also. So that was back in 2013. I had an allergic reaction to something. I didn't know what it was, and it had been about 8 months since my last HIV test. I generally was fairly sort of responsible about getting tested, using protection on and off. Responsible as I knew to be, because no one really taught you that. But I went and got an HIV test along with my allergy test, because it seemed like the time. And I found out at a corridor in a hotel, going to a lab, because the lab technician just didn't know how to sort of give that information. So it was, I think it's safe to say that I felt that my life was over. It sort of stopped me in my tracks and got me to have like this sort of really confrontational experience that was scary. I didn't know. No one really, like, people tell you, like, even when you get diagnosed, people tell you, especially the doctors, like, it's not a death sentence anymore. But socially, no one's ever told you that. I don't think a lot of people realize that what we understand medically about HIV and what we understand about HIV socially is very different. I do talk about this. I tried to take my life at one point. Failed attempt, but it was a real sort of, I don't know the expression, but it made me realize that if I am going to live, I will do things that I enjoy. I will not be apologetic about who I am, and I will also, like, there is no point, like, life could, even though the HIV wouldn't have killed me, the understanding that life can end, and it's just a matter of anything that can happen. It can happen to anyone. What kind of life do I want to live, and help me decide what I wanted to do next with it. I then went and got my test again, just for confirmation, and then when the results were handed to me, the doctor said, "Naughty වැඩ කරපුවාම ඔහොම තමයි." I don't think she meant ill in her expression, but she made me feel bad about my actions, and I don't think I should have felt that way. I don't think I deserve to have felt bad. Up to date, I still get messages saying, "Oya tama marunne nadda?" Or "Ai oya minissunta HIV බෝ කර කර යන්නේ?" Like pretty much like anonymous messages asking me to go kill myself, or asking why do I exist, why am I doing what I'm doing, why do I express the way I do, because that's sort of creating more stigma. Why do I try to save other people instead of save myself? But then again, on the other end of it, I do also find people appreciative of the fact that I am talking about it. And I was going to sort of have this large sign in front of me that said, "Living with HIV, sort of walk with caution," so that I knew that anyone who walked through that door would already know and is willing to sort of accept me alongside that, so that they can accept me and see me finally for who I am. May it be friends, relationships, just general people. It was a defense mechanism of sorts, but first and then later it became something that happened in a more sort of social way. People, HIV is the virus. AIDS is a condition that is a result of the virus, of not treating the virus over a long period of time. So that is a big misconception, that people always sort of use HIV and AIDS simultaneously or to mean the same thing, and we have a fear of AIDS because I know that with my experience that there is a lot of people in different social or socioeconomic classes, different backgrounds, different settings that are living with HIV and don't talk about it because they're afraid of how they're going to be sort of responded if they start to openly come to terms with it. So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It is something that you take in order to prevent yourself from contracting HIV, and that's the most simplest thing. There are a couple of regimes. It's close as a vaccine that we have. It's not a vaccine, I don't want to be misquoted, but it's something that you can take to prevent yourself if you know that you might be putting yourself at some form of a risk of contracting HIV. I am very upfront about it in my job interviews. I have been. I don't know, there is a possibility of not being offered a job because of it, but I don't want it to come as a shock after I've been hired, and I don't want even an employer to sort of be confronted by that fact. And also I just really wanted to sort of open that conversation in places that are hiring people, that there are people who are living with HIV successful and really sort of driven, and that is not a barrier for someone's achievement. I will not go back in the closet. I am not defined by my sexual orientation or my HIV status. And talking about my HIV status, because it not only affects me, it affects my family really badly. Affects them because people make sure that they make it a point to bring it up to them and sort of make them feel bad, like they have failed in some way. But I think my parents have been real champions in that, to sort of make me feel like they've achieved something by bringing up a child who's able to own it. I think the only thing that I was really told as a child is to be a responsible citizen, and I think that is what I'm trying to emulate with my work, with my life, and I really appreciate my family for sort of having my back there. I wish I could live a life where I'm not defined by HIV or my sexual orientation. Support equality.